see the grid is now provided in a large print edition. Yeah.
And then making the tikkun smaller and smaller.
Hi, Leslie Wiener. Hi, Leslie. How are you? So are you? I'm Aaron. Hi. Leslie, how you doing, Leslie? You look lucky. Hi, Jamie.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to our Shabbat honoring our men's club. We appreciate, just as we had our women of CBS Shabbat and appreciated our women, today we stop and appreciate our men. And we have a number of people participating. Andy's going to begin by leading us through both the preliminary and the shacharit. We rise, page 65.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sefer vina l'avkin ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'kei chivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam al bisharumin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam atir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zukef kufufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rakaretz alamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasali kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam emichin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozei Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam otei Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam anotein lev koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yiratzon lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'lohev oteinu zleinu. U'tneinu hayom uv'kol yom l'chein al chesed rachamim beinecha v'nei kol reinu v'tigmalenu chasidim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gamel chasidim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Yiratzon lefanecha Adonai Elohei v'lohev oteinu. Ribon kol olamim al tzkeinu anachnu b'pilim l'chein lefanecha. אבל אנחנו עם כאן בבריתך בני אברהם אהבת. לפיך אנחנו חייבים להודות לך משפחה. אשרינו מה טוב חלקנו מה נמגור לנו מה יפה ירושתנו. אשרינו שאנחנו משכימים מעריבים ערב ובוקר ואומרים פעמיים בכל יום. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. Atu ad shalom nivra holam, atu shenivra holam, atu balam hazeh v'atahu lam haba. Kadesh shemcham l'shei shemecha v'kadesh shemcha b'olamecha v'shorcha timtakbech karnenu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh shemcha barabim. Atahu Adonai Eloheinu b'shamayim u'varech shmei hashamayim yonim. Yiratzon lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'lohev oteinu shibnei beit hamikdash b'mirav yameinu v'tenkelkenu b'toratecha v'sham navadcha b'yirah k'mei olam u'b'shanim kadmoniyot. Page 72. Hayom yom Shabbat Kodesh shebu hayu olavim omrim b'beit hamikdash mizmor shir liyom haShabbat tov ladot l'Adonai. Oh, you know, Seva de Shinim Aranim, you, Leagid Kiashar Adonai, Tsari, Velo Avlatabo. The Psalm for Rosh Chodesh is on page 78. Orchi Nafshi et Adonai. Yechvod Adonai le'olam esmachim anasav u'mebitlan. Yerav alaschi anachnu Adonai tamuchi tim min haaretz u'shemod ya'anam v'orchi nafshi et Adonai. Hallelujah. Page 81. Mizmor Shir Chanukah Bayit LeDavid Aramim Adonai Telitani. Hafakta Misbim Lacholi Petatasaki Dezreini Simcha Lamanya Zemecha Kavovelo Yidam Adonai Elohai Leolam Odeka Kadesh Yit Gadal V'Yit Gadash Shemei Rabbah V'Yalma Divrach Hirutei V'Yamlich Machotei V'Chayechonu V'Yomechonu V'Chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael B'Galav Izman Kariv V'Yimru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam L'Omei Almaya Yitbarach V'Yishtabach V'Yitba'ar V'Yitromam V'Yitnaseh V'Yitadar V'Yitaleh V'Yitalal Shemei Dekudsha Brichu Le'ila Min Kol Birachata V'Shirata Tushbachata V'Nechemata Da'amiran B'Yalma V'Yimru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'Chaim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Page 83. Baruch She'amar V'Haya Ha'olam. Baruch Hu Baruch HaSeh Bereshit Baruch HaMevioseh Baruch HaZem Chayim Baruch Merachem Al Haaretz Baruch HaMerachem Al Habriot Baruch Meshalem Sachar Tov L'Reov Baruch Halot Kanetzach Baruch Podeh Matzil Baruch Shemo Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Ha'el Avachem Ram Elot V'Yamo Mishubach Yachid Kei Olamim Melech Mishubach Varei Et Shmo Hagadol Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Mehulal Batishbacho.
Amen. You may be seated.
We turn to page 96. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yalalu Chasela Hashem Shechachalo Hashem Shadonai Elohav Tila LeDavid Arabim Chalo HaYamelech V'Chashem Chal Olam V'Ed B'Chol Yom V'Checha V'Lashem Chal Olam V'Ed Tilat Adonai Daber Pi V'Varech Kol B'Sashem Chal Olam V'Ed V'Anachnu Nevarech Ya Mi'atav Yad Olam. Hallelujah. Page 100 in the middle. Hallelujah, hallelujah b'kadsho, hallelujah b'kiya uzo, hallelujah b'gvuratav, hallelujah karov gedlo, hallelujah b'teka shofar, hallelujah b'nevel v'chinor, hallelujah b'toch machol, hallelujah b'minim v'yugav, hallelujah, hallelujah b'tzil tzalei shama, hallelujah, hallelujah b'tzil tzalei truah, kol anshama tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol anshama tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai L'olam Amen v'Amen. Baruch Adonai Mitzvah Shechem Shalom, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai L'melech Yisrael Asad V'lot Levado. U'Baruch Shem Kavado Li'olam Umlei Kavado Et Kol Haaretz. Amen v'Amen. 101, please rise. Vayavarach David et Adonai l'nei kol hol vayomer David Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu. Atahu Adonai levadecha tasit et hashamayim shmei hashamayim kol tzva'am. Atahu Adonai Elohim asher bacharta be'Avram v'otzetu merakastim v'samta shemo Avraham umatzat levavo neman lefanecha v'charoti me'abrit latet et eretz hakanani v'chiti meri prizi v'vusi girgashi latet lazaro. Vayam bakata lifnehem ve'evru b'toch hayam ve'abasha v'yet rotfehem mishlak lo mislot k'mo'even b'mayim azim. 102. Vayosha Adonai bayamu et Yisrael me'amitzrayim vaya Yisrael et Mitzrayim meit al sfat hayam vayad Yisrael et ha'yad ha'gdolah asher asa Adonai mi'Mitzrayim v'yiruam et Adonai v'yaminu b'Adonai uv'Moshe avdo. Az Yashir Moshe uvenei Yisrael et Ashira hazot ladonai vayamru leimor Ashira ladonai ki ga'a sus verachvo rama bayam Azi v'zimrat ya v'yehili lishua ze'eli v'yan vehu Elohei avir mamenu Adonai ish melchama Adonai shemo Markevot paro v'chelo yarabayam Umivchar shalishav tubu biyam suf tehomod yichasyumu yardu bimsalot kamoaven yimin chadanai deriba koach yimin kanai tratza amar yever dafasi galal shalal Mi chamocha v'eli maranai mi chamocha naraba kodesh v'nor tilodo sefel and atiti mechantav le'aretz. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Ki l'Adonai hamlucha mashel b'goyim v'lu Moshe amartzionu l'shparat haraysa v'aytal Adonai hamlucha v'yad Adonai l'melcha kol haaretz v'yamu Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Page 104. Nishmat kol chai tivarech et shemcha Adonai Eloheinu. Ilu pinu malei shira kayom l'shanenu v'ina k'moel. Mi Mitzrayim galtanu Adonai Eloheinu beit avadim b'ditanu. Al kain evadim shabal tabanu v'rak nishaman. Yid milachmi yishvelachmi yarelach halagadol. Nahalelcha and shabechacha and faercha unuvarech et shem kadshecha ka'amur leDavid barchi nafshi et Adonai v'kol karvai et shem kadsho ha'el batatu motuzecha hagadol b'chvod shemecha hagibor lenetzach v'nora b'noratecha HaMelech HaYoshev Al Kisei Ram V'Nisa.
Middle of 105.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo. Chatuv v'ranu tzadikim baronai layasharim nava tehila. Befi yesharim tithalal uvdivrei tzadikim titbarach uvelshon chasidim titromam uvekerev kadoshim titkadash. Uvamakalot v'revavot amcha beit Yisrael b'rin v'shmecha malkeinu b'chol dor v'dor. Shekein kovat kol yitzudim lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu lehodot lehalel leshabeach lefaer leromem lehader levarech lehalel ulekales al kol divrei shirot v'tishbechot David ben Ishai avdecha meshichecha.
Closing bracha.
Yishtabach Shimcha Load Malkeinu, page 106. Berachot v'hodaot me'ata v'yad olam baruch atah Adonai el melech gadol batishbachot el ahodaot adon haniflaot aboche b'shirei zimra melech el chei ha'olamim yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah v'yalmad divrach gerutei v'yamlich malchutei chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael bagalav izman kari v'yimru amen Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam lo me'almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tishbechata v'nechemata damiran b'yalma v'yimru amen Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaeh Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Yotzer Or Uvarei Choshech Oseh Shalom Uvarei Et HaKol Hakol Yaducha V'Yachol Shabchucha V'Kol Yomru En Kadosh Kadonai Ein kirkacha Adonai Eloheinu ba'olam hazeh v'yein zulecha malkeinu l'chayei olam haba efes piltecha go aleinu limot hamashiach v'yein domelecha moshienu l'tchiyat hametim El Adon al kol ha'ma'asim baruch u'mvarach befi kol neshama gadlo v'tuvo malei olam da'at u'tfuna sova v'imoto hamidga'el chayot ha'kodesh v'nedar b'chavod al ha'merkava zechut u'mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei kevodo Tovim yarot shebara Eloheinu yitzaram v'da'at bevina ufaskel koach ugvura natan bahem liot moshlim bekerev tevel maleim ziv umfikim noga na'eh zivam bechol ha'olam samechim b'tzeitam v'sasem bevoam Osim b'yei maratzon konam Pe'er v'chavo notnim lishmo Tzahal laverin al zechar malchuto Kara l'shemesh vayizrachot, ra v'hidkin surat havana, shevach notnim lo, kol tzeva marom, tiferet ugedula, serafim v'yofanim v'chayot hakodesh. Page 109. Leila sheshavat mikol ha'masim b'yom hashvi t'leisha. Page 110. Tiparach tzureinu malkeinu v'goaleinu borei kadoshim ishtabach shem kol ad malkeinu yatzem. Kulam auvim, kulam berurim, kulam giburim, v'kulam osim be'mavira rason konam, v'kulam potchim et bihem, b'kdushav tahara, b'shira uvzimra, umvorachim shabachim fari makdishim, umakdishim umamlichim, et shem ha'el ha'melech, ha'gadol ha'ibor nara kadosh hu. V'kulam makablim aleihem, al malchut shemayim ze mizeh, v'notnim reshut ze lazeh, le'akdish li'etzram b'nachad ruach, v'zafa v'ruah v'nima kadosha, kulam ke'echad, onim v'yomrim be'yira, kadosh, 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 Adonai tzivot, melo kol ha'aretz kevodo. V'aufenim v'chayot HaKodesh berash gadol mitnasim liumat serafim liumatam meshabachim v'yomrim baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo le'baruch k'mot nitenu l'melech HaKayv Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu l'remeher aleoro, baruch ata Adonai, yotzer ha'meorot. Page 111. Avar abav tanu, Adonai Eloheinu, chem lagodolav v'terachamata aleinu. Areneinu b'toratecha v'dabik libeinu mitzvotecha. V'haviyenu l'shalom me'arba kanfot ha'aretz v'tolichenu k'miut li'artzeinu ki el poel Yeshua rato v'anavarchata me'kolam v'lashon geravtanu l'shemcha hagadol sela be'emet l'odot l'chayat chedcha b'yahava baruch ata Adonai habocher b'amo Yisrael b'yahava Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'yahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'ksharatam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'isharecha v'hayam Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'yamarta aleihem v'yasu lahem tzitzit al kanfei v'gdeihem l'doratam, v'natnu al tzitzit, hakanaf patil techelet, v'yalachem letzitzit, uritem oto, uzacharatem et kol mitzvot Adonai, vasitem otam, v'lo taturu, acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem, asher atem zonim achareihem, leman tizkuru, vasitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kadoshim leloechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, emet v'yatziv nakom. V'dor hu kayam u'shmo kayam, v'kisenu chan malchut tov, nato la'ad kayamet, v'dor kayim kayim nakodim, Allah v'tein v'yoleinu v'aleinu. Emet shatahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, Malkeinu Melech Avotenu, Go'aleinu Go'el Avotenu, Yotzreinu Tzor Yeshuatenu, Odenu Matzilenu Me'olam Shemecha, Ein Elohim Zulatecha, Ezrat Avotenu Atahu Me'olam, page 114. Mitzrayim galtanu Adonai Eloheinu b'beit avadim b'titanu b'kur me'oragtam v'galtam yam sebakatim. Al zot, shibchu ahuvim, veromemu, el, venatnu yedidim, venatnu yedidim, Zmirot, shirot, v'tishpachot, berachot, v'hodaot, lemelech el chai v'kayam, ram v'nisa, gadol v'nora, mashpil geim, umagbiach shefalim, motzi asirim ufode anavim, v'yozer dalim, v'yon eliamo, v'yeit shavam elam. Tilot leil elyon, baruch barach, Moshe v'nei Yisrael, lechanu shira, b'simcha rabba, v'yamru chulam. Mi chamocha, bo'elim Adonai, mi kamocha, nedar b'kodesh, naora tehilot, osef eleh, shira chadasha, shibchu geulim l'shimcha al sfat hayam, yachad kulam hodu v'imlichu v'yamru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma b'Yezrat Yisrael, Uftei chirumecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai tzivot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Yisrael.
We join together in the initial brachot of the Amidah on page 115b. In the text that follows during our private prayers, we add the text Ya'aleh V'Yavo on page 118 for Rosh Chodesh.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Mekonei HaKol V'Zocher Chastei Avot Umevi Goel Evnei Bneihem Lema'an Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Fokeda Moshia U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Li'olam Adonai Mechaye Metim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv Haruach Umorid Agashem Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verochvei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Memit Umachaye Umatzmiach Yeshua B'ne'eman Atah Chayot Meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye HaMeitim Nekadesh et Shimcha ba'olam Kashem Shmati Shimoto B'Shmei Marom Kakatuv al Yad Neviyecha V'kara ze el ze v'yamar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivaot, Melo kol haaretz kevodo. Az b'kol Rosh Gadol, Adir v'chazak mashmi'im kol, Minasim liyumat tzarafim, liyumatam, Baruch Yomeru. Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Mimkomocha malkeinu tofia b'timloch aleinu ki mechakim anachnu lach. Matai timloch b'tzion b'karav b'yameinu le'olam va'ed tishkon. Titgadal v'titkadash betoch Yerushalayim ircha ledor vador ulenetzach netzachim v'yeinenu tirena Malchutecha akadavar hamor b'shirei uzecha al yedei David Mashiach al yedei David Mashiach tzidkecha yimloch Adonai le'olam Elohai Zion, Ledor Vador, Hallelujah. Ledor Vador, Nagid Godlecha, Ulenetzach Netzachim Kirshatcha Nakdish, Shivchavcha Eloheinu Mipinu Lo Yamush Le'elam Vaed, Ki HaMelech Gadol V'Kadosh Ata, Baruch Ata Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Moshe Banat Machel Koki Even Makrot. Shamiru B'nei Yisrael Ata Shabbat Lasat Shabbat. Eloheinu v'Elohe Avotenu Ritzei B'nuchatenu Baruch Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohe Yisrael Lefilatam Moshe Eloheinu v'Elohe Avotenu Ya'aleh v'Yavo v'Yagia v'Yiratzev v'Yitzav v'Yishma v'Zacher v'Zchonim Moshe B'nabdecha Zechron Yishalem Yakadshecha v'Zechron Kolam B'nei Yisrael Yom Rosh Chodesh Hazeh Zachreinu Eloheinu B'Bitcha 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 Yeshua B'Rachim L'Kus V'Chaim 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 Tekazenu Eneinu Shol L'Tzeim B'Rachim Yal Kulam Yiprogram Pashim Chaim V'Gilum V'Ed V'Chol Chaim V'Chasel V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V'V' Chesado. Sim Shalom Olam Tavarachem. Ose Shalom Bimroma, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Imru, Amen. Yase Shalom, Yase Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, Yase Shalom, Yase Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael. Yase Shalom, Yase Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael. Yase Shalom, Yase Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael. V'yimeru.
We turn to page 133. We rise for Hallel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro et Hallel. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Adonai, hallelujah. Shem Adonai, Shem V'chmet Avin, Olam Mizvach, Shem Shem Olam. Miki Leoshivim nedivim im nedivei amo Moshivi akeret abayir Im abanim semecha Hallelujah B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim B'nei Yaakov me'am lo'ez Hayta Yehuda l'kodsho Yisrael mamshelotav Hayam ra'av Ayanos Hayarden Yisov le'achor Ha'arim rakedu chelim Giva'ot kivnei tzon Malecha hayam Kitanus Hayarden Tisov le'achor Eharim Tirkedu chelim Giva'ot Kivnei tzon Milivnei Adon Uli aretz Milivnei Eloi Yaakov Ahochi Hatzor Agamayim Halamish Lemainomayim Page 134 in the middle of the page. Adonai Zecharanu Yivarech Yivarech et Ben Yisrael Yivarech et Ben Aaron Yivarech Yirei Adonai Akitanim im Hagedolim Yosef Adonai Alechem Alechem Yavnechem Berukim atem l'Adonai Oseh shamayim v'haaretz shamayim l'Adonai Haaretz natan libnei Adam lo ametim l'Hallelujah velo kol yordei duma v'anachnu nivarech Yah me'ata v'yad olam me'ata v'yad olam Hallelujah. Middle of 135. Hashiv Adonai kol k'maloi, Alai kol yishurat zevashim Adonai ekran nidalai Adonai shalim nekal l'kolomon. Teka patakti l'amot zerid l'cha zepek d'Adonai v'shem Adonai ekran. Nidarai l'Adonai Hashalem Negdana l'kol amo B'chatrot Beit Adonai b'tochech Yerushalayim Hallelujah Hallelujah Adonai Kol goyim shabechu Nahabchu Kol ha'omim Ki gavar aleinu chasdo V'emet Adonai Li'olam Hallelujah Hodu l'Adonai Ki to ki li'olam Mitzar Karatia Anani Vamerchavia Adonai Lo Ira Maya Seli Adam Adonai Beozrai Vaniere Visonai Tov Lakas Abadonai B'Tov Adam Lakas Abadonai B'Tov Equally Shari Tzedek Avoba Modeya Equally Shari Tzedek Avoba Modeya Nitani Vadili Lishua Odecha Ki Anitani Vadili Lishua Even Masu Habonim Hayetale Rosh Pina Even Masu Habonim Hayetale Rosh Pina Me'et Adonai Hayet Azor Iniflat B'Yenenu Me'et Adonai Hayet Azor Iniflat B'Yenenu Ze Hayom Asa Adonai Nagila V'Nitmekavo Ze Hayom Asa Adonai Nagila V'Nitmekavo Adonai Oshiana Adonai Oshiana Adonai Atzlichana Adonai Atzlichana Baruch haba b'shem Adonai baraknuchem mipet Adonai baruch b'shem Adonai baraknuchem mipet Adonai El Adonai v'Yolanu Sotach Avotim HaKanonu Mitzvech Adonai Mitzvech Adonai Mitzvech Oh, do I come to Yahluka and Matzaka Bakasaka Tarikimotonaga Beholum Kabiki so Ki meolam adolam el Baruch ata Adonai Melech mu'ala batishpachor. Page 138. Yitkara v'yikara shemei rabba me'miyam adivra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayichonu v'mechonu v'chayi l'chol beit Yisrael b'agala v'zman karev yimeru amen yehi shmei rabba mivarak li'alam olam me'omaya Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitbar v'yitroma v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yidalal shmei l'kudeshah b'richo le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tibchata v'nechamata damiran b'yalma v'yimeru amen tika b'tzilot honu v'ot hon d'chol Yisrael kodam avuhon v'shmaya v'yimeru amen yehi shlama rabba min shemai v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimeru Ose shalom bimromav, oyase shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. David is going to lead us through the next part of our service. We continue page 139.
Ein kamocha ba'alim Adonai, ein kamasecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umimshaltecha bechol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imlo le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'mo yitain, Adonai embarech et amo v'shalom. Avarachamim heitivan lechoncha et Zion. Tibnei Hamot Yerushalayim, Tibnei Hamot Yerushalayim. Ki becha levad vatachnu, melech Aaron v'Nisa, Adon olamim. Yehim bin Aaron vayomer Moshe, Koma Adonai ve'afutzu ovecha, ve'anusu misonecha miponecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'Kedushato. Berisha made them Amrei Dalma. Bein be'anarahet ve'lishme kadisha yakira anaraman tushbeha be'anarahet ve'lishme kadisha yakira anaraman tushbeha Yeheira kadama detiv talibia ilaroraita v'shashis nishalim deliabai v'libatakama Israel v'tahu v'shlayim Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadelu Adonai, Ronema Shemo Yaftav.
Lecha Adonai Hagidula. Shake some hands. V'anetzak v'haor kicho b'shamayim u'va'aretz kicho b'shamayim u'va'aretz lecha Adonai ha'mamlacha yamid na'aseh lechol rosh Romemo Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavo la'adam raglav kadosh hu Romemo Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavo lehar kocho kikadosh Adonai Eloheinu yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la yalla la yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la yalla la yalla la la. Ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. You may be seated. You may notice we have 3 Torahs this morning. So we have, and this is a very rare occasion. It only happens once, maybe twice a year. First, you have your normal Shabbos reading. We're reading from the Sedra of Tazria. We then have a Torah in which the week of Rosh Chodesh before Pesach, as we announce the month, there's a special maftir of HaChodesh. Now, should that day also fall out, specifically on the day of Rosh Chodesh, we then have a third reading for Rosh Chodesh. Having said that, that's not the sequence in which we read them. The tradition is whatever you do most commonly, most frequently, that you do first. So the Shabbos Torah reading, every week we read the Torah reading. So this is what we're going to do first, the Shabbos reading from Tazria. The second most common is Rosh Chodesh. We do that every month. And so we'll read the text from Bamidbar, second. And finally, HaChodesh is a once-a-year event, so that gets the honor of being the third Torah reading. So that's the process and the sequence. We're going to begin our Torah reading this morning, page 655, verse 29. ויעזור ויגן ויושיע לכל החוסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל הבו גודל אלוהינו תנו כבוד לתורה ימות ראשון. ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. ואתם הדליקים באדוניכם חיים כולכם היום.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Vaed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. ואיש או אישה כי יהיה בו נגע בראש אוב זקן. ראה הכהן את הנגע את הנגע, והנה מראהו עמוק מן האור, ובו שער צהוב דק, וטימא אותו הכהן נתקו צרעת הראש, או זקן הוא. וכי יראה הכהן את נגע הנתק, והנה אם מראהו עמוק מן האור, וזכר שחור אין בו, והזכיר הכהן את הנגע הנתק 7 ימים. וראה הכהן את הנגע ביום השביעי, והנה לא פסע הנתק, ולא היה בו שער צהוב. ומראה הנתק אין עמוק מן האור, והתגלה, ואת הנתק לא יגלח, והזכיר הכהן את הנתק 7 ימים שנית. וראה הכהן את הנתק ביום השביעי, והנה לא פסע הנתק באור, ומראהו איננו עמוק מן האור, וטיהר אותו הכהן וכיבס בגדיו וטהר.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. So the Norenskis are here celebrating an anniversary. Mishaberach Avatinu Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. May God who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Diana and Morris who are here today with gratitude for the blessings that their 52 years together have afforded them. May the Kadosh Baruch Hu protect them and deliver them. May they continue to enjoy God's blessings, surrounded by family, by the love of children, by the love of family, by the love of the family of the community here with us today, so that they will always live in joy and gladness, peace and companionship. And together we say, Amen. Od yishama b'yar Yehuda u'bechusot Yerushalayim. Od yishama b'yar Yehuda u'bechusot Yerushalayim. Kol satzon v'kol simcha, kol chatan v'kol kala, kol satzon v'kol simcha, kol chatan v'kol kala. Yeah, wait over here. Our second aliyah, page 636, verse 35. Yamot Sheni.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Baruch hu Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Olam Moed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'chavonu mikol hamim v'natan lanu Torah. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
That moved, didn't it? Yeah, that's it. Right there, just touch it, yes. Okay. Oh, lost it again. Oh, here it is. Amen. Va'im pas efseh hanetek ba'or acharei techorato v'ra'ahu hakohen v'hinei pasha hanetek ba'or lo yivaker hakohen laseor hatzachav temehu yom be'enov amad hanetek v'seor shachor tzamach bo nirpa hanetek tahor hu vaticharo hakohen va'isho isha kiye ve'or basharom becherot lavanot vera'o hakohen v'hinei ve'or basharom becherot kechot lavanot bohak hu orach baor tachor hu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yamot Shlishi.
Baruch hu Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Moed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Moed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen ve'ish ki maret rosha kereachu tahor hu ve'im mip'at panav imaret rosho gabeachu tahor hu ve'chiyeh v'karacharo v'gabachat negalavan adam dam tzara'at porachat hi b'karakto v'gabakto.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamod Revi. Page 657, verse 43.
Baruch hu Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Moed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Moed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'chavonu mikol hamim v'natan lanu es Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ra'oto hakohen minei setanega levaladam demet bekarakto begmakto kamare tzaraat orasar yisrahu tamehu tameh yitamenu hakohen rosho nigo Ve'atzarua asher bo hanega begadav Yufrimim Rasho Yefarua Aspam Yateh Ve'tame Tame Yikra Koyime Asher Hanega Bo Yidmatame Ve'dadishe Mechutz L'machaneh Moshavo.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nosan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam nota b'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamor Chamishi. Come back. Take the fringes on your top. It's going to touch me.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. La beged kiebo negatzarat veveged semer o veveged pishtim o vishiti o me'erev vepishtim v'latzamer o v'or o v'chol melechet or v'haya haneka Yirak rak o adam da beged o va'or o vashiti o ve'erev o v'chokli or neged sarat hu bara et hakohen bara hakohen et hanaga v'yizkir et hanega shivat Yamim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet ve'ayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So this morning we have several simchas, and you might notice a youngin. Eloheinu ve'Elokei avotenu kayem et hayeled hazot li'avia u'l'ima. By our God and God of our ancestors, sustain this child. Let her be known among the people of Israel as Miriam Leah, bat Gershon Udvorah, as Monica Lydia, daughter of Kevin and Deborah. May her mother be blessed with renewed strength, and may both parents find joy in their child, as it is written. It was this child I prayed for, and Adonai has granted me what I have sought. Fulfill for her, Adonai our God, that which is written. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the Torah of loving kindness is upon her tongue. Let us give thanks to Adonai, for Adonai is good. God's loving kindness is forever. May this child, Monica Lydia, Miriam Leah, grow into greatness as a blessing to her family, to the Jewish people, and to all of humanity. May her parents be privileged to raise their child to womanhood, and may she enjoy the blessings of Torah, Chuppah, and Maasim Tovim, good deeds. And together we say, Amen. So you'll share a little bit with us about the name? Please.
Shabbat Shalom. We are here today to introduce our daughter into the covenant of the Torah. We have given her the English name of Monica Lydia and the Hebrew name Miriam Leah. Her name comes from her maternal grandmother, who is here today, and great-grandmother. May her memory be a blessing. These two women in Deborah's life represented great strength, elegance, beauty, and wisdom. Whenever she needs advice, she can always turn to her mother for great insight, or visit the memories of her grandmother and ask herself, what would Bube do?
Growing up, Deborah always knew that her daughter would be named Monica, after her mother, as is a tradition in the Sephardic culture. Deborah's mom is always there to lend a hand, offer advice, or for a good laugh, the kind that spreads through your entire body. That great sense of humor must have been an inherited trait from her mother, and we hope it gets passed down to our daughter. Deborah looks up at her mother, and we are delighted to have such a wonderful role model for our daughter. When Deborah went to university in Mexico, she lived with her grandparents. Her grandmother became like a second mother to her. Every day after class, Deborah would sit at the end of her grandmother's bed, and they would talk, sharing about their day, laughing, or listening to her grandmother's stories. They formed a special bond that Deborah will always cherish, and that bond will live on in our Monica. We hope that Monica inherits their wisdom, kindness, elegance, strength, and humor. We chose Monica's Hebrew name, Miriam Leah, from two great women in the Torah. Miriam, the sister of Moses, who led the Israelite women in dance after crossing the Sea of Reeds. Leah, the first wife of Jacob, who is a mother of 6 of the tribes of Israel. We hope Monica is a leader among women and will one day have a great family of her own. Lastly, we want to acknowledge Monica's 2 older brothers, Gabriel and Rafa, right on cue. They have been so great and helpful with her and immediately welcomed her into the family and our routines. We look forward to seeing the 3 of them grow up together and all the incredible things that they will do. Monica, Lydia, we love you so much. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to ask you to please rise as we extend the blessings of the Kohanim.
We give it.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. You may be seated. Somebody has to stay here. It can be a grandmother. Anybody who's up here, one person. Everybody else has a chance to go down. We're continuing with the 6th Aliyah, Yamot Shishi, page 658, verse 51.
Baruch es Adonai Havara.
Baruch Adonai Melech Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim, v'nasan lanu es toraso. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
אמן. וראה את הנגע ביום השביעי, כי פסע הנגע בבגד ובשתי ובערב, ובאור לכל אשר יעשה האור למלאכה, צרעת ממהרת הנגע, טמא הוא, ושרף את הבגד, או את השתי, או את הערב, בצמר או בפשתים, או את כל כלי האור, אשר יהיה בו הנגע, כי צרעת ממהרת היא באש תשרף. ואם יראה הכהן, והנה לא פסע הנגע בבגד ובשתי ובערב ובכל כלי אור, וציווה הכהן וכיבסו את אשר בו הנגע, והסגירו 7 ימים שנית. וראה הכהן אחריהו כבס את הנגע, והנה לא הפך הנגע את עינו, והנגע לא פסע, טמא הוא באש תשרפנו, חטאת היא בקרחתו וגבחתו. ואם ראה הכהן, והנה כהה הנגע אחרי, הוא כבס אותו, וקרע אותו מן הבגד או מן האור, או מן השתי או מן הערב. ואם תראה עוד בבגד או בשתי או בערב או בכל כלי אור, פורחת היא באש תשרפנו את אשר בו הנגע, והבגד או השתי או הערב או כל כלי האור אשר תכבס, ושר מהם הנגע, וכובס שנית וטהר. זאת תורת נגע צרעת, בגד הצמר או הפשתים או השתי או הערב או כל כלי אור, לטהרו או לטמאו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נתן בסוכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נושן התורה.
Amen. Yamor hamagbi v'hagolel Sefer Rishon. First, lift your entire, and we ask you to please rise. Who's tying? Bizot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai B'yad Moshe Yitzhaki Dirakeha darchei noam v'chol netivotei shalom. Dirakeha darchei noam v'chol netivotei shalom. Yalla la yalla la 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 yalla la la yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la la. Yalai, yalai, Yamot Shvi. You may be seated. The seventh Aliyah can be found on page 930, verse 9.
This one I do for Ukraine. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Voed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Voed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Uvayom HaShabbat shnikvasim b'nei shana tamimim u'shnei esronim. So let mincha b'lulav Hashem v'nizkor olat Shabbat b'Shabbato al olat tamid v'nizkar u'v'rashei chodshechem takriv olat la'Adonai parim b'nei bakar shenayim ve'ayil echad kivasim b'nei shana shiva tamimim u'shlosha esronim. Solid mincha b'lulav Hashem en lapar ha'echad u'shnei esronim. Solid mincha b'lulav Hashem en la'ayil echad ivisaron isaron. Solid mincha b'lulav Hashem en la'keves ha'echad o la'reach nichoach ishel Adonai v'nizkehem chatz yahin yelapar u'shlosishit hahin la'ayil urvirahin la'keves yain zot la'choret b'chodsho l'chodshei hashana u'se'irizim echad lechatat la'Adonai al olad tamid yaskeh v'nizkor.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher notan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notedah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
We pause in our service at this point and offer a mishaberach for those who are ill. We ask those who have a name they'd like to add to please rise. Mishaberach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sar Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimalei rachamim aleihem lahachazikam l'rapotam v'yishlach lahem mehera refuah shlema min hashamayim refuah hanefesh refuah haguf b'toch sha'ar cholei Yisrael Shabbat hi milizok refuah krova lavo hashta ba'agala u'bizman kariv and omar amen. We ask everyone to please rise. Mishaberach Mikor Abracha Leimotenu, may the source of strength, who once before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberak imotenu, Mikor Abracha Lavotenu, in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabbah, v'yomad yivra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayikon uv'yomekon uv'kayedecha ben Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kariv yimero Yehi Shmeira b'mivarach le'alam olam yomaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnase v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shemei Kudusha b'richo li'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Totechata v'nechemata damiran v'yama v'yimero Ya'amor ha'magbir lahagol le'let l'sefer sheni Mizot ha'Torah asher samoshe libnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Torah, 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 Torah. Actually, it's this one. Okay, thank you. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, Torah. It's chapter 12, verse. Torah, Tziva lanu Moshe. You may be seated.
No, it's before, it's after this.
Now, a word from our sponsor.
It's more that this one. This is all this interplay between Moses and Pharaoh. Through all this, and we get there. Yeah, here, this is chapter 14. You want chapter 12? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It goes this way. It's not Boel Paroi. That's the beginning of Bo, but it's a little bit weirder than. Okay. What are the first few words? I don't remember. I'm not reading. Oh, who's reading? I don't know who's reading. Something about the seasons.
forward, that's past it.
Yeah.
It's not too much before. That's it. Okay. Okay. Baruch Hu et Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch the Olam Va'ed. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch et Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe v'el Aaron b'eretz Mitzrayim lemor hakodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim rishon hu lachem lechodshei hashana dabru el kol adad Yisrael lemor be'asor lachodesh hazeh vayikechu lahem Leveit avod esel abayir v'imimar abayit miot misev lakachu ushecheno hakarov el beito b'miktzat nefashot ish lefi ochlo tachosu al aseh setamim Setamim Zachar ben Shaben Shana Yelachem Mina Kevasim Umina Izim Tikachu V'aya Lachem L'mishmeret Ad Arba'a Asar Yom LaChodesh Hazeh V'shakatu Oto Kol Keladat Yisrael Ben HaArbaim V'lakechu min Adam V'natnu Al Shtei HaMezuzot V'al HaMashkof V'al HaBatim Asher Yochlu Oto Bahem V'yachlu et HaBasar B'layla Hazeh Tzli Yesh Umatzor Al Merorim Yochlu Al Toklo Mimenu Na Uvashel Mevushal Ba'amayim Ki Imtzu Li Esh Rosho Al Kira'ah V'al Kirbo V'lo Totiru Mimenu Ad Boker V'anotar Mimenu Ad Boker Tisruf Ad Boker Ba'esh Tisrofu V'chacha Tochlu Oto Motnechem Chagurim Na'alechem Beraglechem U'makelechem Yerechem V'achaltem Oto B'chipazon Pesach Hu L'Adonai V'avarti B'eretz Mitzrayim B'layla hazeh V'iketi Kol Bechor B'eretz Mitzrayim V'yad Me'adam V'yad Behema Uvechol ha'Elohim Mitzrayim eseh shifatim. Ani Adonai v'hayadam lachem. ועל הבתים אשר אותם שם ראיתי את הדם ופסקתי עליכם ולא יהיה בכף נגב למשחית והכותי בארץ מצרים והיה היום הזה לכם לזיכרון וחגותם אותו חג לאדוני לדורותיכם חוקת עולם תחגו 7 ימים מצות תאכלו אך ביום הראשון תשבותו שאור מבתיכם כי כל אוכל חמץ ונכרתה נפש ההיא מישראל מיום הראשון עד יום השביעי וביום הראשון מקרא קודש וביום השביעי מקרא קודש יהיה לכם כל מלאכת עבודה בהם אך אשר יאכל לכל נפש הוא לבדו. יעשה לכם ומשמרתם את המצות, כי בעצם היום הזה הוצאתי את צבאותיכם מארץ מצרים, ושמרתם את היום הזה לדורותיכם. חוקת עולם בראשון ב14 יום לחודש בערב תאכלו מצות עד יום האחד ב20 לחודש בארץ 7 ימים, שעור לא יימצא בבתיכם, כי כל אוכל מחמצת ונכרתה נפש ההיא מעדת ישראל. בגר באזרח הארץ כל מחמצת לא תאכלו, בכל מושבותיכם תאכלו מצות.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam natav b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah.
Amen. Yamod hamagbiv hagolel ashlishi, sefer hashlishi. Please rise. Torah asher sat Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael Adonai Moshe itchayim hilam machazikim ba b'toch ha'meushar. בכל נתיבותיה שלום. יאללה 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 yאללה. You may be seated. The Haftarah for this morning can be found page 1290 from the book of Ezekiel.
Yeah, we're reading the Sephardic, it's a little bit shorter version of the Haftorah, so it starts on verse 18 of 1291, and then this for Shabbat HaChodesh, it ends with verse 15 on 1293, and then it's also traditional to include the first and last verses of the Rosh Chodesh Haftorah, and that's on page 1220. And it's kind of an interesting coincidence because we just read the HaChodesh Maftir. It was chapter 12 and it had 20 verses. And the Haftorah for Rosh Chodesh is on page 1220. So how about that? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem anamarim b'yamet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'torah Moshe avdo v'Yisrael amo v'nvi'ei hamet v'tzedek. Amar Adonai Elohim Arishon Bechad LaChodesh Tichach Har Ben Bakar Tamim V'Kiteita Et HaMikdash V'Lakach HaKohen Midam HaChatat V'Natan El Mezuzat HaBayit V'El Arba Pinot HaZarah LaMizbeach V'Yal Mezuzat Sha'ar Hechatzer HaPnimit V'chein Taseh B'Shivat VaChodesh V'Yishogeh U'Mipeti V'Kipartem Et HaBayit Barishon Bar-Ba'asar Yom LaChodesh Yeh Lachem HaPasach Chag Shavuot Yamim Matzot Ye'achel V'yasa nasi bayom ahu v'lo v'ad kol am ha'aretz par ha'chatat V'shivat yemei echad yaseh ola l'Adonai shivat parim v'shivat elim t'mimim layom shivat hayamim v'chatad se'ir izim layom u'mincha efa lapar ve'efa la'ayil yaseh v'shemen hin la'efa Bashvi b'chamisha asar yom lachodesh b'chag yasecha ele shivat hayamim kachatat kola umin b'chamincha b'chashamen ko amar Adonai Elohim shar echatzer apnimit aponeh kadin Yes, Agur, Sheshet Yemei Hamaseh, Ubeyom HaShabbat Yipateach, Ubeyom HaChodesh Yipateach, Uva Anasim Derech, Ulam Hashar Michutz, V'yamad Amazuzat Hashar, V'yasu HaKohanim, Et Olato V'yat Shlama V'yishtachavu, Al Miftan Hashar V'yatza, V'ashar Lo Yisager Ad Ha'areb, Ishtachavu Amaaretz Petach Hasharahu B'Shabbatot V'chodashim Lifnei Adonai V'ha'olah Asher Yakriv Hanasi L'Adonai V'yom HaShabbat Shisha Kvasim T'mimim V'ayol Tamim Umincha efa la'ayil lakvasim mincha matat yado v'shemen hin la'efa ubayom achodesh par ben bakar t'mimim v'sheshet kvasim v'ayil t'mimim yehiyu Ve'efa la'par ve'efa la'ayil yaseh mincha v'lakvasim Kasher tasig yado v'shemen hin le'efa Uvavo anasi derech ulam ashar yavo uvdarko yetzeh Uvavo am haaretz lifnei Adonai b'moadim haba derek shar tzafon ishtakavod Yetzei derek shar negev haba derek shar negev Yetzei derek shar tzafona Lo yashuv derech hashar asher ba'avo ki nichacho yetzei Anasi b'tocha b'vo'am yavo u'b'tzeitam yetzeu Uvachagim uvamoadim tihyeh hamincha efa lapar ve'efa la'ayil v'lakvasim miktat yado l'shemen hin la'efa V'ki yaseh anasi nadava ola oshlamim nadava l'Adonai Ufatach lo et ashar aponeh kadim yasa et olatov yet shlamav kasher yaseh b'yom HaShabbat v'yatzav tzakar et ashar acharei tzeito v'cheves ben shnato tamim taseh olah layom l'Adonai b'boker taseh oto umincha taseh alav b'boker shishi taifa v'shemen shlishi tahin laros et asolet mincha l'Adonai kukot olam tamid Yasu et keves v'et mincha v'et shemen b'boker ola tamid Ko amar Adonai Hashemayim kisi v'haaretz hadom ragla Ein said, Vayit asher tivnu li, v'en se makom menuchati. Lahaya, midei chodesh b'chodesho, u'midei Shabbat b'Shabbato, yavo kol basar, v'yishtachavot lefonai, amar Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol amim, tzadik b'kol dorot, ha'el ne'eman, omer v'yoseh, hamdaber b'mkayim, shakal devarav emet vat tzedek. Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu, v'ne'emanim devarecha, v'devarecha v'dvarecha, achor lo yashuv rekam. Yel melech ne'eman, rachaman atah, baruch atah Adonai. Ne'eman b'chol devarav. Rachem al Tzion ki hi beit chayenu, v'lo luvat nefesh toshia b'meirav yameinu, baruch atah Adonai. V'sameach Tzion b'vaneha. Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu be'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha, v'malchut beit avi meshichecha, v'meira yavo v'yagel libeinu, al kiso lo yeshev zor, v'lo yenchalu od acherim et kavodo, ki b'shen koshako nishbat alo, shalo yechben eirot li'olam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, Magen David. Al Torah v'yal ha'avodah v'yal ha'nevi'im v'yal yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu l'kdisha v'limnucha l'chavod u'tifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevarakim otah ki barak shemocha b'fi chol kai tamid li'olam va'ed baruch atah Adonai v'kadesh ha'shabbat.
Thank you, Al. It's now my honor to introduce our men's club president. He's been working so hard to keep the group going and doing wonderful things, Wayne Lutzke.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As we honor the Men's Club Shabbat, it's my pleasure to thank everybody for being here, number one, and number two, all the past presidents that have been part of this to bring this organization, part of the shul to where we are today. Men's Club does a lot for the shul. We donate prayer books. We help with maintenance. We help with setting up for the high holidays. We do just about anything that we ask of us, okay? And it's a big part of what happens here at the synagogue. Today, we have very fortunate as kind of come together with a lot of different blessings. Rosh Chodesh, a new month, blessing for a new young baby, and of course, honoring a man of the year for the men's club. In addition to that, we also have an anniversary of 52 years. So we've kind of bridged a whole span of life between everything that we're doing today. And as we are here today, I would like to recognize Morris Narensky for all of the efforts and everything that he has put forth in this past, not just this past year, but the whole time that I've been affiliated with the shul and the men's club, that Morris has been a leader, a past president, Davener, helping with anything that we do, a participant in all the events. So with that said, Morris, if you'd come up here, we'd like to give you this award, please. This beautiful board here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
Even
what you do.
spelled my name right.
We also have a name for you on your plaque, on our plaque, okay? So we thank you for your efforts. We thank you for everything that you do and appreciate everything that you've done for the shul and our men's club. Thank you, Morris.
Okay, thank you very much, Wayne. I appreciate your kind words. More so than the men's club is honoring me, I would like to honor the men's club. It's the men's club, or it is I who should honor the men's club. And I've been involved, as Wayne said, in men's clubs throughout my entire synagogue journey. starting off at the United Orthodox in Houston. I was in their men's club there. Then we moved to B'nai Emunah in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I was very heavily involved with the men's club, including head ushering, which I'm doing here also. And here I joined the men's club as soon as we returned from Tulsa back to Houston. So it's been a wonderful time in my life. And I was also honored, as you may know, a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago, at the International Convention Men's Club with the Ma'asim Tovim Award. So it's with humility that I accept this award, hope to continue my service, and thank you very much for this honor.
Morris, thank you. We appreciate what you do. Thank you.
We turn back to our Siddur, page 153. We rise as the Sifrei Torah are returned to the Ark.
Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki nishkav shemo levado, hodo haleretz v'shamayim, v'sham shelet amor, tila lekol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kirovo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid, Havul Adonai b'nei Elim, Havul Adonai kavos, Havul Adonai kivot shimo, Ishtchavu Adonai bi'arat kodesh. Kavod yirim, Adonai Amayim Rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai be'adar, Kol Adonai koved arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halbanon, Vayakidem kimo egel, Levano v'sirion, Kimo ben remim, Kol Adonai kosev lavosei, Kol Adonai yavumas, Yavios Shamayim, Kol Adonai Shalom, uvenucho yomar. Kavod avinecha, natati lachem torati atazovu. Yitzchayim. Yitzchayim yilama kadikim ba, pitom keham yeushar. Deracheha darchei noam v'chon divoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elechecha v'nashuva
We turn now to page 155. Fred is going to lead us through the Musaf service. No, Fred, you don't get to leave. We remain standing 155.
Yikara Shemedaba Yolomadiv Dochilute Yomlich Malkute Bachayachonu Yomechonu Kayedo Kol Beit Yisrael Vakalav Yisman Kodiv Yimadu Amen Yesh Meidaba Mevoda Leolam Olom Meomaya Yitbodach v'yishtabach v'yitpoah v'yitluman v'yitnatzeh v'yidadav v'yidaleh v'yidalot shemei degodesho v'lichu li'elo min kol b'choso v'shiloto tushbechoto v'nechemata da'miram b'yolmo v'yimadu. Amen.
We join together in the initial brachot of the Amidah, pages 156b, and then the Kedusha, page 157. We continue then with the text for Rosh Chodesh, page 156.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ho'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanoro El Elyon Gomer Chasodim Tovim v'Konei HaKol v'Zocher Chastei Ovot Umevi Goel Livnei V'neihem L'man Shemo B'Yahavo Melech Oseh Upoked Umoshia Umogen Baruch atah Adonai Mogen Avraham Upoked Tzara Ato Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechaye Metim Atodav Loshia Mechalkel Kayim Bechesed Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Nofer Cholim Umatir Asudim Umekayem Emunoto L'Shenei Ofo Mika Mocha Bal Gevurot Umido Melech Meimid Umekayem Umatzliach Yeshua Menemanato Lachayot Meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye Na'aditzecho v'nahakdishecho kesohotzia safei kodesh hamahakdishim shemecho b'kodesh kakatuv al yad neviecho v'kodo ze'el ze'v'yomah Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot, Malach all that's Kavodo. Kavod, Amalei Olam, Shodatov Shoalim Zeloze, Aye Mekom Kavodo, Leomatom Baruch Yomedu.
Baruch Adonai
Nimkomo Yifen B'Rachamim V'Yochonam HaMyakadim Shemo Erev U'Boker B'Chol Yom Tomid Pamahayim B'Yahava Shema Omerim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Uhu Eloheinu, Avinu, O Malkeinu, Moshienu, Vehu Yashmienu, Yashmienu, B'vachamov, Sheni, 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 Liene Kolchai, Liot Lochem Lelohim.
Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Uvdivnei Kodshecho Kotsuv Lemor.
Yimloch
Adonai Leolam, Elohai Yitzion, Ledovador, Hallelujah. Ledovador, 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 Nagid God Lechol, Ledovador, 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 Nagid God Lechol, Olenetzel Netzachim, Kedushov Konahadish, Kedushov Konahadish, V'shivkacho Eloheinu, Mipinu lo yomosh, Le'olam, Le'olam moed, Ledovador, 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 Nagid God Lechol, Ledovador, 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 Nagid God Lechol, Ki El Melech Kadosh, 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 V'kadosh Ato, Ki El Melech Kadosh, 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 Kadosh Ato, Baruch Adonai.
Silent Amidah continues, page 168. אתה יצרת עולם החמי וקדם כלי למלאכתך ביום השביעי, אהבת אותנו וראית לבנו במקום מכל שם וקדשנו מדור. ובעיר הגדול והקדוש נקרא שמך עלינו מפני השטח עלינו אשר יראתם. וביום השבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקורא יומך שבת המקדשי
Oh, say shalom bimdamov. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'yimadu, amen. Oh, say shalom bimdamov. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'yimadu, amen. Yaseh Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimadu. Amen.
Page 181, Kaddish Shalem.
Yiskara v'yiskara shemei v'ava v'yalama divdo chilutei v'yamlich malkutei v'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayid kol beit Yisrael b'kolov v'tzmanko v'imadu.
Amen.
Yesh meira b'mevoda le'olam olam le'omaya Yitbodak v'ishtabach v'yitboav v'tuman v'yitnaseh v'yidada v'yidale v'yidalo chol shemei l'kodesho v'lichol li'elo min kol b'chosav v'shidataha tishpachata v'lechemata dam yodam v'yolmo v'yimadu.
Amen.
Teskabel solod hon uro uthon do kol Yisrael kudon abuhon dibishmayo ve'imadu.
Amen.
Yehei shalom alaba min shemayo v'chayim oleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imadu.
Amen.
Oh, say shalom b'him v'omor. Yaseh shalom oleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imadu. Amen.
You may be seated. We're going to break for a second. We have a Dvar Torah. So you get a chance to sit down.
Oh, cool.
You do. I know I can't win. So for a few words of brilliant Torah, we invite Steve Rubin to come forward, former men's club president, former congregational president, and a man accustomed to our bima.
Fred Florsheimer is always a tough act to follow. What are you, 29? Shabbat Shalom. Before I begin my well-researched and ridiculously well-rehearsed sermon, my devar, about today's Torah portion, Tazria Metzora, I want to give a bit of a shout out to my family, Lori and Mom, who are watching live streaming on YouTube. Glenn Cameraman said, a congregant, he would write $1 million check if I announced his birthday from the Bima. And I made a promise to Ken and Mark Levine that I would not out him. I would not let you know that it was also his birthday this week. And I have kept all my promises. Thank you, Wayne Lidsky, President of the Men's Club of Congregation B'rith Shalom, and Steve Conaway, the Men's Club Shabbat Committee Chair, for the opportunity to present this morning's Devar. Again, my commentary on today's Torah portion, Tazria Metzora. It is a true honor to address all of you today on behalf of CBS Men's Club. Typical of what I do, let's start in left field. This year's Academy Awards show is particularly notable because it had 9 history-making moments. The awards show had its first Black producer, Will Packer. Fans of Beyonce were excited to see her receive her first Oscar nomination, which she received for the song Be Alive, written for Best Picture nominee King Richard. The show had 3 female hosts for the first time, Regina Hall, Amy Schumer, and Wanda Sykes. Ariana DeVos was the first openly queer woman of color to win an acting Oscar, winning the award for Best Supporting Actress as Anita in West Side Story. Troy Kotsur was the first deaf man to win an acting Oscar, portraying Frank Rossi in Coda. Riz Ahmed was the first Muslim person to win an Oscar for Best Live Action Short Film. His award-winning film was The Long Goodbye. Yvette Marina was the first Latina producer to win an Oscar as producer of Encanto, which won Best Animated Feature. Number 8, with Jane Campion's win for The Power of the Dog, she joins just 2 other female Best Director winners, Catherine Bigelow, who won in 2008 for The Hurt Locker, and Chloe Zhao, I'm going to butcher some names here, I promise, won last year for Nomadland. Finally, the 9th history-making event, Coda won Best Picture. This is a film that focuses on a deaf family in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and the aspirations of the only hearing member, Ruby, otherwise known as a CODA, child of deaf adults. Not only is the film the first time a streaming service has won, it is also the first time a streaming service has won, Turning the Page, but it's also the Best Picture Award. But its win was also celebrated by the entire audience at the Oscars doing silent applause, also known as deaf applause or visual applause. I look forward to you doing that for me when I'm done. Despite all of these important social history-making moments at the Academy Awards show promoting diversity and inclusion in the Hollywood film industry, after a decades-long history of being accused of #OscarsSoWhite, there is the slap heard around the world. Those of you unfamiliar, superstar Will Smith, who was up for and did receive the Best Male Actor Award, apparently took great offense at a joke told by presenter Chris Rock, got up from his seat next to his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, a successful actress in her own right, and smacked Chris Rock in the face and profanely told him not to talk about his wife. So you're now asking, Steve, how does the 94th Academy Awards and the slap heard around the world relate to today's Torah portion, Tazria Metzora? Thanks for asking. But let's focus first on what was the joke that infuriated Will Smith. Chris Rock looks over to Jada and tells her that he is looking forward to seeing her star in G.I. Jane 2, intending to make a comedic reference to Jada's bald head. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the original movie, G.I. Jane, the actress Demi Moore has her head shaved with a military buzz cut. Jada had recently come out into the public about her experience with hair loss caused by alopecia areata, an autoimmune condition that causes the immune system to attack hair follicles. For those of you who are unfamiliar with alopecia areata, it is different from male or female pattern hair loss, which is called androgenetic alopecia, the most common form of hair loss. According to the National Institutes of Health, alopecia areata affects all racial and ethnic groups, men and women equally. There is no cure, but sometimes doctors recommend treating it with steroids, medications that suppress the immune system, or drugs that work to stimulate hair growth. Those of you watching the awards show live or watched a video replay like I did of the incident saw Will Smith initially laughing until he looks over at his wife's face and he sees how upset she is over Chris Rock's attempt at humor. The rest, as they say, is history. Now, was that joke funny? Was Will Smith justified in his assault of Chris Rock? Are you going to hit me when I tell a bad joke? We will leave these questions unanswered for now. It is not only uncommon, but it is expected that presenters such as the comedian Chris Rock will roast the superstars, such as Will Smith and his wife, who not coincidentally were seated right in front of the stage. Hi, Morris. And by roast, I mean tell embarrassing and unflattering jokes with the assumption that the person being roasted will be able to laugh at themselves and take all the jokes in good humor. This was definitely not something new that just occurred at the Oscars this year. So why was Jada Pinkett Smith so visibly upset such that her husband Will Smith assaulted Chris Rock? And again, I am not defending or justifying Chris Rock's actions. When Chris Rock made the joke during the show, he focused the attention of the entire audience, not just those present at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, but millions worldwide who were viewing the live broadcast. He focused on Jada's hair loss, something about which she was clearly sensitive about, thereby publicly shaming her. Unfortunately, there is a stigma, a mark of disgrace associated with hair loss in our society. We can't even discuss the subject matter without putting a negative spin on it: hair loss. Women, more than men, may feel the negative impact of hair loss. When a bald woman is walking the streets, people may stare and wonder if she is ill. You can't just blend in as a bald woman in our society. So does God view hair loss so negatively, you might ask? I asked the question, and in our Torah portion today, join me as we turn to page 657 in the Chumash, Red Book. As I read lines 40 through 42 from today's Parsha. If a man loses the hair of his head and becomes bald, he is pure. If he loses the hair on the front part of his head and becomes bald at the forehead, he is pure. But if a white affection streaked with red appears on the bald part in front or at the back of the head, it is a scaly eruption that is spreading over the bald part in the front or at the back of the head. God is telling us that the mere occasion of hair loss without evidence of sarat, we heard that word in the Torah portion today, it's leprosy in the Bible, means we are pure. Without that affliction, that without that splotch, we are pure. According to the Levitical text, the characteristic features of this leprosy were bright white spots or patches on the skin, the depression of the patches below the level of the surrounding skin, the existence of quick raw flesh, the spreading of the scab or skull. Sarat, according to this parsha, afflicts people as well as clothes or homes. If the white spot or patches appear on the person's skin, a kohen, a priest, is summoned. Judging by various signs such as the increase in size of the afflicted area after a 7-day quarantine, the Kohen pronounces it tameh, impure, or tahor, pure. A person afflicted with sarat must dwell alone outside of the camp or city until he is healed. The afflicted area in a garment or home must be removed. If the sarat recurs, the entire garment or home must be destroyed. When the metzorah, in Hebrew leper, heals, he or she is purified by the Kohen with a special procedure involving 2 birds, spring water in the earthen vessel, a piece of cedar wood, a scarlet thread, and a bundle of hyssop. Forgive me, I had to look up hyssop, and I discovered it's an herb that is native to southern Europe, the Middle East, and the region surrounding the Caspian Sea, and it has purported properties as an antiseptic, cough reliever, and expectorant, and is used in traditional herbal medicine. Hyssop. But is this the leprosy that we understand today? Not at all. Leprosy, as we understand it today, is a disease of the nervous system. It's a bacterium. Mycobacterium leprae attacks the nerves. It's a rod-shaped bacterium related to the tuberculosis bacterium. By the way, with the pandemic and everything that's been going on, this is fun talk, isn't it? Leprosy is spread by multiple skin contacts as well as by droplets from the upper respiratory tract, such as nasal secretions that are transmitted from person to person. Did I say Men's Club and others are sponsoring the Kiddush luncheon? The symptoms of leprosy start in the skin and peripheral nervous system outside the brain and spinal cord, then spread to other parts such as hands and feet and face and earlobes. Patients with leprosy experience disfigurement of the skin and bones, twisting of the limbs and curling of the fingers to form the characteristic claw hand. Facial changes include thickening of the outer ear and collapsing of the nose. I could keep going, but the bottom line is that leprosy as we know it today, if untreated, is awful, but more importantly, it is not hereditary, it is not a curse, and it is not from sin. So how does one become afflicted with the leprosy that is referred to in our Torah portion? Well, it doesn't tell us how we become afflicted in our Torah portion. Our Torah portion reads more like an instruction manual or diagnostic guide for the Kohanim. Torah scholars direct us to the story of Moses' sister, Miriam, who suffered the biblical physical disease as a consequence of her challenging Moses' choice of a dark-skinned woman to be his wife. Miriam was not in the wrong for making something up about Moshe's wife. We were told that it was true. Her sin was talking about her in a derogatory manner towards Moshe. The external affliction of leprosy was inextricably linked to her immoral action of bad talk, an evil tongue. You've heard of the term lashon hara. Sarat is the consequence when we violate the law against this bad talk, lashon hara. This means that it's forbidden to speak negatively about someone else, even if it's true. You say, well, but people talk negatively about other people all the time, yet where are these metzorim, these spiritual lepers? Why don't we see evidence of sarat? Some Torah scholars say that spiritual leprosy does not occur because of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, the temple in Jerusalem. So what then is all this fuss about leprosy in the Torah? The fundamental concept underlying Lashon Hara is the prohibition against judging someone else unfavorably. Let's go back to the story of Miriam. It was really a minor sin with many mitigating factors. Miriam spoke about her brother whom she loved. She didn't really say anything negative. She only questioned why he was acting differently from other prophets. She didn't embarrass him by speaking in front of him. Moshe, who was probably the most humble person of all time, didn't hold it against her. Still, she was severely punished. The root of the problem does not start with one's mouth. The problem ultimately begins with a negative assessment. A person makes a judgment or assessment about someone, and the problem is in the assessment. The idea of not judging others unfairly or negatively is also made apparent in the Parsha by the way the priests, the Kohanim, address the spiritual leprosy. A sick person would stand before the Kohen who would diagnose the illness. If it was determined that the person was a leper, he or she would be expelled from the community for the duration of the recovery process. Given this potential outcome, it seems reasonable to expect that the person visiting a priest for diagnosis would be frightened. It also seems likely the priest would view such person as a likely sinner, as one perhaps already guilty. In other words, if you look at them and you could see evidence of this spiritual leprosy, then you would think that they were a bad person. Instead of prejudging that person in a negative way, the Torah tells us that the priests, in an incredible display of care and compassion, demonstrated an ongoing commitment to each person's inherent inhumanity and dignity, regardless of their leprosy determination. For the moment that the negah, plague or affliction, appeared on an Israelite skin, the priests were involved. They would wash the affected area, shave the hair from the body, and observe the nature and progression of the affliction. The priests monitored the wound for up to 2 weeks. After this period, the afflicted person was either pronounced clean and permitted to resume normal life or declared a leper. In the latter case, the public health needs of the community were made paramount, and the patient was placed outside the community until fully healed. I'm so glad that we don't do this with COVID-19 and put people in other places. But we make arrangements and accommodations, as we have at Bris Shalom, to let everybody be a part of the service and participate. Until the moment of removal from communal life, the potential spiritual leper represented an important obligation for community leaders. Even though community health and ritual purity were their primary responsibilities, the priests spent time addressing each person individually, seeing each face, and understanding each person's pain. So, let's put all this together for today. We don't have the benefit of spiritual leprosy, a health condition that tells everyone when you see it that they have transgressed and committed forbidden Lashon Hara. And mistakes in judgment can be devastating to everyone involved and should be avoided. If we did have spiritual leprosy, we would all know who had committed Lashon Hara, and we could avoid him or her. The best way to avoid Lashon Hara is to see others always in a positive light, to give them the benefit of the doubt, or as my mom of blessed memory would frequently say, just think before you speak. Chris Rock, he would have benefited from studying today's Parsha. He made Jada Pinkett Smith's medical condition the butt of his joke, needlessly causing her undue pain and trauma, all for a cheap laugh. His joke was Lashon Hara. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a society where our differences can be a source of extreme tension and conflict. However, we are all God's creation, and we all deserve respect, compassion, and dignity. May we all open our hearts and minds to what we have in common and give others the benefit of the doubt, avoiding Lashon Hara, thereby contributing greatly to a better society and better lives for everyone, especially during these times when it seems as if so many people out there are trying to divide us and promote conflict. And finally, just as the spiritual lepers, as described in Leviticus, were not rejected and turned away by the Kohanim, I hope you share my pride in being a member of the men's club where everyone, even lepers, are welcome and diversity and inclusion are valued. Shabbat Shalom.
Fred, we want to welcome you back. Page 182, En Kelohenu. There is no other God.
Before I'm asked to sit down again, when you get a chance later on, wish the cantor a happy birthday.
Oh, gosh. Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
You're welcome. The other person who has not been thanked is Steve Conway for putting everything together. Thank you.
He's our Jewish altar boy.
Ein Keloheinu, page 182. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atohu Eloheinu, Atohu Adonenu, Atohu Malkeinu, Atohu Moshienu, Atohu Shekiru, Avotenu, Lefanecho etoved hasamim. Page 183, Olenu, Olenu l'shabeach le'adon ha'kol, l'otzeit gedulo li'otzeh b'reishit, שלא עשנו כגויי הדוצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדומו, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגרד עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלוכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוטט השמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל וזקינת עוזו בגוהי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפת סולתו ככתוב בתורתו וידעתו היום וישיבותו אל לבוא בכור כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Beautiful choir work. This Shabbat, our hearts go out to the families of Adela Yankovich, Marvina Beasley, Marion Daum, Melissa Wagner, and all the families of the Israeli individuals who lost their lives in the terrorist attacks this past week. We're observing the yortzites of Elliot Samuel Gerger, Abram Ginsberg, Irving Goldenberg, Manley Goldfein, Abe Goldman, Simcha Hampel, Tara Esther Hazan, Bia Heffler, Esther Jarnitsky, Esther Cantor, Julius Nabel, Archie Leader, Hava Mirkin, Bessie Edith Pear, Israel Ze'ev Pollock, Shirley Reff, Alvin Reingold, Joseph Barnett Royal, Martha Schrager, Harry Siegel, Adela Wasserstrom, and Claire Wosuzek. All those in a period of mourning, all those observing yard sites, we ask you to rise. Words of Mourners, Kaddish can be found, page 184. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv yimru amen.
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach li'alam elamei amaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei kudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. Before I call Wayne up to do announcements, I just want to congratulate and wish everyone a Yasher Koach, all those people who participated in the davening, in the reading, in delivering words of wisdom. We appreciate all the incredible talent that we have here, that it enables us to lead and join in prayer together as a community. It's really a very beautiful experience, and we thank each and every person who participated. So we have announcements. Mr. Litsky, there are a few words of wisdom again.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. For those who don't know, my name is Wayne Litsky. I am president of the Men's Club and a member of the CVS board, and honored to be a part of it, truthfully. I'm glad you're here to celebrate Shabbat and celebrate community. It's a great pleasure to see everybody here, presence between here and everybody on Zoom and YouTube. Please take a look at our Madrich for all of our upcoming services and events. Just here are a few highlights. Morning Minions with Mortar Kaddish, Sunday through Friday, 9 a.m., still Zoom only. Keter Levine's beginner level Hebrew class. It begins tomorrow, as well as a presentation by Houston Jewish Funerals on planning the end of life. Rabbi Teller's Exploring Judaism class continues this Wednesday. Check out our website for links to Rabbi Teller's Exploring Judaism podcast. In addition, Rabbi Teller would hope everybody who can make it would be a part of the Mock Seder at UOS. It's next Sunday night. I'd also like to join us on Thursday for Chazan David Crohn's concert, April the 7th at 7 p.m. in person. Streaming and registration information in the bulletin. And like to add anything to that, please?
Dawson, would you share a little bit about what we're hoping to see?
Thank you.
I'll do it up here just so our live streamers also get a part of it. I promise 20 seconds. I know we're all hungry for Shabbos lunch. This concert on Thursday that I'm doing at Shul here, this will be my first concert in about 4 years that I've done, and it's a special program to me. This is a piece of music that I learned in my master's program at Juilliard. It's a cycle by Brahms that I can promise you will never hear this sung again. It is a very rarely performed piece of music, and there was a doctoral level pianist that I worked with there that did this for her doctoral program, and I've been wanting to find a pianist that I could do this with again, and I met a couple years ago a pianist from Romania who's on faculty at University of Houston. She's sponsored by Kawai, the piano manufacturer's amazing pianist. She's going to come here and do this concert program with me, and we have our very own Cantor Mark Levine to do our narration for it. So it'll be a real treat. It's free of charge. You don't need tickets. Come at 7 o'clock and treat yourself to a nice program of some music. So I'm excited to share it here with my shul family. So thanks.
Hazan, thank you very much for your words. We look forward to that. Truly will be wonderful. Also, in addition, CBS Women's Passover Spring Collection Drive, it runs through April 30th. There's been some emails and looking for food and some clothing. And last but not least, a special thanks to the Men's Club for sponsoring today's Kiddush Luncheon. Thank you also to co-sponsors Deborah and Kevin Metter in honor of their daughters, okay? And naming ceremony, and Diana and Morris Noransky in honor of their 52nd anniversary. We appreciate everything everybody does. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue and conclude page 187, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam Hashem Olah B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa B'Chefzo Kol Azai Mele Shemo Niklo B'Yachadei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nola V'hu haya, v'hu hove, v'hu yiyeh, v'tifara, v'hu echad, v'yein sheni, lehamshilo, lehagbila, v'li reshit, v'li tachlit, v'lo hod, v'hamizrah. V'tzorchev li b'yetzara v'hu nisi umanos li menaskosi b'yom eklo b'yado afkid luchi b'yet ishan v'yo'ilo v'yim luchi k'v'yoti
Please rise for the Kiddush. There we go.
V'shomro v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasod et ha-Shabbat le'dolotom v'gidolam v'shomro v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Sheshet Yomim Asa Adonai Et HaShamayim Ve'et Haaretz V'shamu B'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat Lasod Et HaShabbat Al Kain Baruch Adonai et Yom HaShabbat vayikadshehu Savri Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'olei p'di hagafen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Telas Yodoye Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Please find someone to bless.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך. יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.
תהי רצון. Good Shabbos.
Take a motzi.
Lechem min haaretz. Thank you.
Motzi.
Up, your book. Rabbi is.
Where is the moment? Yeah, he's been there.
Frank, well, Frank said that.
I got you. Rabbi's been there.